Alright, Camille here. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to build Collei as a sub DPS slash Dendro enabler. Without further ado, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's begin. Alright, so first of all, starting off with your talent priorities. Mainly, most of Collei's own damage is going to be coming off from her elemental burst. So you'd want to upgrade your elemental burst first and then your elemental skill. Her auto attacks is not really recommended to upgrade them at all. You definitely don't want to be using them. No charge attacks, nothing like that. So you just want to skip them unless you want to play her as a main DPS. Alright, so now moving on to her Constellations. So starting off with your C1, it's going to increase your energy recharge by 20% when you're off field. That's a very good constellation. Collei is going to generally need energy recharge. So that's a very good constellation. It's going to help you with your burst uptime, which means technically more damage. So yeah, I would say C1 is worth it. Honestly, it's pretty cheap and it's also pretty valuable. Now for C2, it's pretty long, but basically what it is that usually when you have like Collei at C0 or C1, her passive talent is that when you throw in her elemental skill, before your elemental skill ends, if you trigger a reaction or one of your party members triggers a reaction, you're gonna have like 2 extra Dendro hits. They're pretty close range, but it's just like 2 extra Dendro hits that are gonna trigger. Now with C2, you don't have to trigger a reaction to get that effect. When your elemental skill returns, you're gonna have the effect just like that. You don't have to do any reactions. And if you manage to still have reactions, then the effect's duration is going to increase by 3 seconds. So it can make it pretty easy, and if you manage to still have the reactions, you're going to have more hits. The most important thing about this constellation is the Dendro application. More hits equals more Dendro application. The damage you're going to get from the hits is just kind of bullshit, it's whatever, but the most important thing is the Dendro application. But as I said before, they're pretty like close range. I don't know if you're usually going to be able to take advantage out of them. It's almost as like Barbara's, elemental skill when it hits. It's pretty close range. Usually you're not going to be hitting enemies with it. So yeah, that's the biggest like negative in my opinion. But at the end of the day, it's still C2, so it's kind of cheap. I would say it's a cool constellation. I wouldn't really say it's worth it or it's good, but if you had it, it's going to be good. Sometimes it might help you. I would say it's not really very consistent, but it's there. C3 is going to increase the level of your elemental skill by 3. Again, it's nothing really special. It's going to give you some extra damage and that's about it. C4 is that after you use your elemental burst, it's going to increase your party member's elemental mastery by 60 for 12 seconds, and it's not going to include Collei herself. I would say it's pretty decent support constellations, pretty good, especially considering what type of teams you'd want to play Collei in. I would say it's pretty good. C5 is going to increase the level of your elemental burst. As I said before, your elemental burst is going to be a very good source of damage, so I would say it's pretty decent. But the thing is, it's kind of expensive, so it's good, but it's nothing really special. It's not very good, it's not bad, but it's there. Now C6 is basically just like 2 extra hits. Each one of them is going to deal 200% of your attack as extra damage. To be honest, right now, I don't see the point at all for C6. It's basically just like 2 extra hits. It's like a weapon's passive. I guess it might be a little bit extra Dendro application, maybe, I'm not really sure, but for right now, what I'm sure about is that her C6 is pretty bad. So yeah, it's one of the bad C6s, definitely not worth it, so yeah, don't go for it. So yeah, for constellations as a whole, I would say they're pretty good, well, except for C6, but generally as a whole, I would say they're cool. None of them are gonna increase your damage by a lot or like change something big, but they're gonna be cool. In my opinion, I would say just play her at C0 if you wanna like save up, if you're like free to play or whatever. If you wanna go a little bit for constellations, maybe you can go for C1 or maximum like C4. Her best constellations in my opinion are C1 and C4. She's also going to be given for free, so you can get her C1 pretty easily, which is good. And if you want to invest in her a little bit, I would say go C4 and then stop. That's it. Alright, so now moving on to her weapons. Generally, her weapons are very, very flexible, I would say. She doesn't really need any type of like specific weapons. She needs a lot of things, so a lot of weapons are gonna work on her. But I would split the weapons into like 2 general categories. The first one is like the damage weapons, you can say. These are the weapons that are gonna boost her damage. So you have pretty much all of the 5 stars. All of them are gonna work on her and boost her damage a lot, except for the LG for the end. So you've got the Skyward Heart, Harp, the Amos, Polar Star, Aqua Simulacra, Thunder Impulse, and also the new Hunter's Bat. All of the 5-star bows are good, so yeah, they're gonna work on her, all of them. Some of them, the passives are not really gonna work on her like very well, but they're still like pretty good stat sticks. You also have the 4-star options. I would say the Stringless, the Alley Hunter, the Windbloom Ode. These are like her next tier weapons, you can say. And then you have like the usual crit weapons like the Blacklift, for example, or the Viridescence. These are gonna work on her too. And then the second like category of the weapons are going to be the energy recharge / support weapons. These weapons are going to boost her energy recharge and maybe give her like some support options. The best one is definitely going to be the LG for the end. It's going to work on her pretty well and it's going to boost your team by a lot, so it's a very good weapon on her. I would say it's technically like her best in slot. You also have the Favonius Warbow. It's a very good weapon on her too. You have the Sacrificial, even though the passive is not really that usable, especially because of the elemental skill Dendro application cooldown, but it's still a very good weapon because it's gonna give you energy recharge. You have the Fade and Twilight if you got it before. You also have the End of the Line. It's gonna be a free weapon, and I would say the End of Line is probably her best free to play weapon. So if you want to build Collei and you don't have any of the weapons above, you should probably try to make sure you have the End of the Line. It's gonna be a very good weapon compared to the other free to play weapons. I also just want to say I did like a tier list for weapons. I went through every single bow from 3-star, 4 stars, 5 stars, all of them, and basically just like reviewed it on Collei. So if you want to see her weapons guide in depth, you can check out that video. Alright, so now moving on her artifact set. She has a couple of options. You can go for the 4-piece Deepwood. It's going to increase your Dendro damage, and it's also going to decrease the enemy's Dendro resistance, which obviously is going to increase your damage more. But most importantly, it's going to be a very good support set if you want to use her with like another Dendro. So if you want to use her with like Tighnari, for example, you can use another set on Tighnari, and then use Collei with this set to boost her damage and also Tighnari's damage. So yeah, it's going to be a very good set on Collei herself, and it's also going to be like kind of a good support set. For her own damage alone, you can use the 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate. It's going to boost your energy recharge and also your elemental burst damage. We're going to be building energy recharge on Collei, so it's going to be a very good set on her. And as I said before, your elemental burst damage is going to be like your main source of damage. Also for support sets, you can use her with something like the 4-piece Noblesse, or if you don't want to use her with any of these sets, you can use something like the 2-piece Deepwood and then any other 2-piece, like the 2-piece Deepwood, 2-piece Noblesse, or 2-piece Deepwood and any other like attack 2-piece. Now moving on her artifact stats. If you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you. But yeah, for her artifact stats, starting off with the main stats, you also have a lot of options that you can choose from, so we're gonna explore them. So for her sends, you can go either attack percent, energy recharge, and elemental mastery. She needs all of them, and as I said before, same thing for the weapons. Each one of them is gonna be good. She needs all of them. So depending on what you went with on your weapon, you can choose what to go for on your sends. I'm gonna tell you the final stats in a little bit, and based around that you can choose. Personally, I prefer attack, but you can use any of them depending on your needs. For your goblet, preferably you'd want to use Dendro damage bonus, but I know it's gonna be pretty long to farm like a good Dendro piece, so you can use attack percent in the meanwhile until you get like a very good Dendro piece. For the circlet, you'd want to use crit. Now for the substats without any priorities, again it really depends on what you had on your weapons and artifacts, and based on that you'd want to see what you need on your substats. So she's gonna need crit rate and crit damage, she's gonna need attack, she's gonna need energy recharge, and she's gonna need elemental mastery. She's gonna need all of those. I'm gonna tell you how much she's gonna need of all of those in a little bit, and if you don't have enough of any of them, you'd want to focus on it on your substats. Now for the final stats you want to have on Collei, your crit rate and crit damage, you'd want them the usual 50 to 70% crit rate, and then 100 to 140% crit damage, or a little bit more if you can. Energy recharge, you'd want it to sit around 170 to 200. 170 is the bare minimum, and then 200 is where you're gonna be like comfortable playing her and having her burst at a good uptime. It also depends on the team and stuff like that, but usually this is the range. Elemental mastery, you'd want to sit around at least 100 to 200. 100 is like the bare minimum because you're gonna be doing some reactions with her, even though a lot of times she's not gonna be the one triggering the reactions, but still you're gonna need some elemental mastery. But above 200, I would definitely say it's not worth it. So like 100, 150 to 200 maximum is gonna be enough. Alright, so now moving on to her team comps. So this is the section where I'm actually not really sure. Dendro in general is very new, so it's hard to expect the best meta teams. But I would say based around what we know right now, Collei's Dendro application is not really that good. And for that, you probably want to use her in a quicken / aggravate team. That means you'd want to use her with electro characters. In these type of teams, you don't need the very strong Dendro application, so these are probably going to be her best teams, or at least the teams where she's gonna be viable. So you'd want to use her with a couple of electro characters and then a flex. So let's say Raiden Shogun or Kaching for example, or whatever, and then a second electro Yaimiko or Official, and then Collei, and then another flex, let's say Zhongli for example. On that team, she's gonna be a Dendro enabler for aggravate, and your team is gonna be dealing a lot of quicken and spread reactions. So in my opinion, right now, without any testing and stuff like that, this is pretty much the only viable team for Collei. I don't think she's gonna be very good on the Bloom teams and the rest of the reactions. Again, I think, I'm not sure. If you're watching this in the future, check out the pinned comment. I will probably update it, especially for the teams. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and see y'all in the next video. Peace.